Welcome to the Brant Phillips Show, the show dedicated to results. Now, here's Brant.
Welcome, everybody, to the Brant Phillips Show, the show dedicated to helping you create results in your life and business. So, I promised you, the first podcast, that I was going to tell you a little bit about my story. Bit about my story. So, I'm going to do my best. My friends, to only share information that's pertinent, to tell this story about who I am, why I am, and so that you can hopefully be able to gain some insights that you can use in your life and your business to create results. So I don't know of any other way to do this except to tell my story. So yes, I was born at a very early age, as we all are, but I'm going to start like with the high school years, right? So, actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to go back a little bit. Now that I started in this, I wasn't going to bore you with some details, but I am. So, I grew up in the Dallas area, a little suburb outside of Dallas called Raleigh, Texas. And it was at the time, it was a very rural kind of area. It's not that way anymore. It's pretty big. But I had a great childhood. I played sports all year long, had some really good friends, and we, just a very solid middle income neighborhood, very, healthy home life. And it was really, really cool. And then, however, things changed a little bit. So around the time I was in middle school, it wasn't around the time, it was that time. I was in sixth grade. And it was a little bit before the Black Friday fallout. And long story short, the industry my father was in, which was tied and connected to oil and gas. My dad was just a high school graduate kind of guy, but he had learned how to draft and draw, and guy took him under his wings, and he was gainfully employed for a really long time until 1986 came. And he eventually, during this bust, if you will, he lost his job for a long time. A couple of years he was without work, and we eventually lost everything. We were broke. We had to move, and we eventually even lost the house that we moved to, and parents couldn't pay the bills. We lost our home. Parents went into foreclosure, bankruptcy, the whole nine, and we eventually moved to Houston. The only reason I'm sharing that story is because some of those things that happened way back then have affected who I am and why I am the person I am because of those things, and some of the quote unquote pain that was experienced, and just really some of the things that I saw my parents going through, and the look in their eyes. I knew that I didn't ever want to be in that situation that they were in, and I certainly didn't want my kids going through stuff that I went through. And granted, I know like people have things in childhoods and a million times worse than that, but that was my experience, and it was difficult there for a while. And I'm like, I want to create a life where I don't go through that again, right? And so let's fast forward now. I'm in high school, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Like I struggled in school, and I had no plans or thoughts of going to college. I was just like, when I'm done with high school, like I'm done. Like I was going to be done. So I didn't apply for college, had no plans to go, and parents couldn't really afford it. I didn't really want to take out a student loan to go pay to go to school. Like, to me at the time, like that thought was just ludicrous. And so whatever, I managed to get through through high school. And I remember the day after I graduated, I packed my bags and told my parents I was moving back to Dallas. Had one of my good buddies from high school. He wasn't going to college. He was kind of in the same boat, kind of struggled just to get out. So we're like, let's figure something out, figure out what we're going to do. And so I moved up to Dallas, and we went and got this job working in a warehouse. And it was rough. We were loading and unloading 18-wheeler trucks for about 10 to 12 hours a day at least. And I was 18 years old at the time, but I'm not going to lie, it was grueling labor. Picking up and setting down boxes all day long, loading these trucks on pallet jacks. And this was in the Dallas, Texas area. So it was hot. And so we did that for maybe 5 or 6 months, and it sucked. It sucked really bad, and it was really hard. But the good thing, and I'd have you guys consider a little tangent real quick, is that there really is no experience in your life that can be all bad if you are committed to finding the positive lesson, from that. So this was just one of my introductions into the world of positive focus and learning how to glean insights and takeaways that I can use from any situation. So here's the deal. I just remember some of the older guys that were working there, and I'm not even saying they were really old. Some of them were mid to late 20s or 30s, and there were some 40 and 50-year-old guys working in the warehouse. But I just saw that there were guys there who were older than me, and I was just kind of looking into my future. I'm like, I don't want to keep doing this. And some of these guys were friends, or I was beginning to consider them friends, and they were like, dude, get the hell out of here. What are you doing? And I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. And I need to ask myself that question. What in the hell am I doing? So, after that, soon thereafter, I decided, let me check out this college thing. Let me talk to my buddies, and maybe it's not so bad. And I really had nothing else to do. And I didn't really have any direction at that time. And so I decided to go to college. That's what I did. I went to a junior college, so I didn't have to take out the loans and that kind of stuff. And I eventually got a criminal justice degree to become a police officer. The only thing that really excited me at that time was to be a police officer. I'm like, well, that seems like a pretty cool gig, and I think I could do that. I think I'd be pretty good at that. And so that's what I did. I went to work at a police department after I graduated college, and I enjoyed it. I really did. And at least for the first 5 or 6 years, I worked for a couple years in Dallas and moved back down here to Houston, and had a great time. I was single, and so I had a lot of buddies, had a lot of good times, had a lot of fun, and got to do some really cool things in terms of my job. I got promoted to sergeant, and I worked when I was in Houston, I worked in the medical center area, which is one of the largest medical center areas of the world, I believe, and centers of the world, and maybe the largest now. I'm not really sure on that. But I used to run VIP details for celebrities and dignitaries and things like that. I used to work with the Secret Service a lot, do details for George Bush, and for the governor of Texas, and just a lot of cool people. Did details for Henry Kissinger. There were some other celebrities, Lance Armstrong. There were some actors and actresses, and Rick Perry, the governor. I think I mentioned that, and just helped to work the Secret Service and security, set up details, entrance, exits, things like that, and it was cool. But whenever things changed, and those things did change, my last couple of years, I got married. We had our first child. The police department got a new chief, and there's a lot of politics going on, and things began to really suck there for a while. And this was where I was really kind of getting my first wake up call to this life of really having a job. Because the first 5 or 6 years, yeah, I had to show up, at a certain time, and it wasn't true freedom. But I was single. I didn't care if I had to work evening shift or late shift or holidays. Like, I didn't care. Like I was hanging out with my buddies and just doing whatever I wanted to do my other time. So I didn't care. But whenever I began to have a family and these politics started to come down the line that I didn't agree with things, and I could see where things were going, and I had no control of my time, and I was having extra mouths to feed, so I was having to work a lot of overtime and different hours and night shifts and weekends, all that kind of stuff. That's when it was like beginning to be a kind of tough pill to swallow. I'm like, wait a minute here, like this is not the life that I desire at all, and I wasn't getting rich doing it. And there was I remember there's like a long period of time I was working evening shifts. So I'd get off like at I would go into work, like around noon or 1, and I would get off at around 10 o'clock at night if I was lucky. A lot of nights I was going home later than that, or I was working a double shift and staying all night long. But if I got off on time, maybe I get home at like 11 o'clock at night, and my wife would be asleep because she had to get up in the morning, go to work, and she had to take her son to childcare because the daycare place that was over by where she worked at, which was on the complete opposite side of town where we lived and where I worked. So she'd be asleep, and I would get home and they're asleep, and I would wake up in the morning, and she'd be hurrying up to get ready and leave, and I'd be exhausted. But I would, most days get to say bye to them, my wife and my son, and they were gone. And she was a hairstylist, and hairstylist busiest days are typically Fridays and Saturdays, and those just happen to be my days off, or Friday and Saturday. So it was cool because I got to hang out with my son and those days. But my wife would come home and she was like deadbeat exhausted. She'd been working all day on her feet, and here we are, like Friday and Saturday, not really seeing each other, not great connection time. It's Sunday morning, I'm going back to work. We get to go to church in the morning, then I'm like back at work. And so other than that Sunday morning being pretty cool, it kind of sucked, and that's how it was, and it was hard, and that's where I began, like the seed was planted in my mind at that time. It was like, I'm not going to do this forever. Like, I'm not going to do this forever. And then I mentioned there's the income thing, because I wasn't getting rich doing it. So I had also, seen my father and others that were, living this JOB lifestyle where they're just grinding it out in this very middle class life, and just struggling, or just discontent with life and not really ever getting ahead. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. First off, let me just say that there's honor and integrity and nobility, even if you will, in working a job and having a career, and a lot of the life that the middle class lives. And it's a great life, comparatively speaking, to the rest of the world. And I'm not talking down on anybody, and I just want you to know that, especially not my father, who I love and respect. So I just had to acknowledge that it wasn't something that I desired. But I was at a point where I didn't know what to do. I knew I wanted to create a better lifestyle, like check, like I knew that. And I knew I wanted more money, like check, got that. Like I knew I wanted it. And I knew I wanted more freedom. Like all those things I knew that I wanted. And I wanted freedom in what I did, and I wanted freedom for my time. And I damn sure wanted to make more money. I really wanted to make a lot more money. And what I was doing wasn't getting it done, obviously. So not knowing what else to do, I knew there's, I didn't have like a long-term plan. So, often what happens is when we fail to plan, there's someone else who's going to be there and plan for us. Okay. If we fail to plan, like someone else is going to be there to plan for us. So if you're at that place working at your job and you're not committed to leaving and starting your own business, guess what? Your employers are creating a plan for your next 5, 10, 20 years of your life in the ways that you are going to help them increase their net worth and their freedom and their lifestyle by having you plugged in as a widget performing some type of little job there. So I fell into a trap of began to have these thoughts, these seeds of thought about I wanted freedom, I wanted more money, I wanted to do something I enjoy, but I didn't know how to do it. And I got to the point where the politics and lack of time with my wife and son had got the best of me. So I got a corporate job. I got a corporate sales job because the grass is always greener on the other side, right? But saying that I got a sales job is not really shedding the proper light on what I was doing. All right. So the company I went to work for, yes, it was a Fortune 500 company. It was a good company. It was a big company. It was a financially strong company. My father-in-law worked at that company and helped me to get the interview. I don't think he helped me get the job. Quite frankly, I think I did well in the interview. But anyways, I got the job. And what I sold chemical cleaning chemicals, chemical cleaning chemicals. That sounds good. For the industrial services industry, like hospitals, hotels, long-term care facilities, restaurants. I basically sold soap. All right. Like, let's just put it like that. Like, I sold soap. And when we sold soap, our customers got complimentary dispensers so they could use a bunch of our soap. And so I sold the stuff, right? Which was cool. But when you sell stuff, like, you have to service it. And that was the deal with this company. So when you're servicing things, you respond to calls. So I would literally be, wearing like nice clothes to work, nice shirt, ties, sometimes like a suit and jacket and like all that kind of stuff, the whole nine. And then I would have like this lab coat thing in my car where I'd have to throw that bad boy on and go install equipment and respond to calls. So I'd literally be on a sales call appointment with somebody, and then maybe half an hour later, I'd be underneath a dishwashing machine at a dirty restaurant on the ground with a wrench and screwdriver in my hand, installing some piece of equipment or fixing something that's broken. And there's like steam and water and like dirty dish machine food like dropping into my face. And it really sucked when I wasn't wearing my goggles. Not to mention it's like 110 degrees in the Texas heat, and those hot Texas restaurant kitchens is like burning up. And I'm sitting here wearing like a shirt, a tie, slacks, sometimes wool, and a lab jacket. So I'm just like sweating my what off. And it was not enjoyable, my friends. It was not an enjoyable place to be. So I remember even the very first day I took this job, we had to go through all these meetings and corporate whatever indoctrination. And I remember I got home and my wife was like all excited and was like, I'm so proud of you. This is going to be so exciting. You're home in a reasonable hour. We'll have the weekends and things like this. And how was it? And yada, yada. And so I remember, looking at her and just saying like something to the effect of, you know what? I absolutely hate it. And I said it in a positive way, though. And I said, but look, here's the thing. Like, don't worry. Like, I'm going to stay at this company. I'm going to do well. I'm going to do really, really well until I can find out what it is that I'm really going to do with my life. Because I can guarantee you that this is not for me. And this corporate world was not for me. And so I knew right then and there that was not going to be the life for me. And so at that point in time, I had to figure out what to do while still working my job. And like I said, having this job for some people, like it's not bad. I just knew that it wasn't what I was called to do. And and I began having some thoughts. Began having these thoughts into just beginning to consider deeper, really considering deeper, what I was going to do, and but the thoughts were different. When I first had the thoughts of, oh, freedom, I'm going to do, something that I enjoy and create lifestyle. Yeah, it sounds really great, but let's be specific. And when it came to the thoughts about specificity, I had none. But the thoughts began to be different. It's like, I know I'm going to do something else. Like, I know I'm going to do something else. I didn't know what it was, right? So, at that point in time, you're like listening to me speak right now. Looking back, like, I was the average middle class, like, white dude American, right? Like I mentioned, like, I was raised in the family in the lineage of just a bunch of middle class dudes and average folks, and like, they were really good down to earth people, blue collar, hardworking American people, and that's to a certain extent who then and now I see myself as. Hey, this is Brant, and I hope you're enjoying today's show. If you're at a place in your life or your business where you just feel stuck, or you just don't know what actions to take to help you get unstuck or onto the path to creating the results you truly desire, please take a few minutes and go to my website, brantphillips.com. There's some really valuable resources and information that may be able to help you out. And if you're interested in really speeding up results with the help of a coach and mentor, and adding true accountability and guidance to your life and business, please reach out to me from my website as well at brantphillips.com, or going directly to www.brantphillips.com/coaching. Now let's get back to the show. But I got to a point I didn't want that anymore. And not talking negatively about anybody, but I did not want that for me. I wanted something better, and I was just at the point, like, I was pissed off. Like, I was pissed off at the way that my life was. I was pissed off at what I was doing, and I knew that this company wasn't going to provide for me what I wanted. Right? So really the big question was, it was time for Brant to look in the mirror and just have this conversation with myself, like, heart to heart, man to man, eye to eye with myself. What was I going to do to make a change? What was I going to do something different? Because if you keep doing what you've always done, you're going to keep getting what you've always gotten. And I wanted different results. I wanted different results. But, at that point in time, I didn't have any business experience. I didn't even know other people who were really entrepreneurs, and I certainly didn't know real estate investors. Looking back at that, I lived in an apartment when I started working at that job, and didn't know anything about real estate, being an entrepreneur. So what I did, though, from just beginning with those thoughts on my mind, just considering other possibilities, I just really held on to them and believed, like, wholeheartedly believed, even when I didn't have a lot of facts to surround it with, quite frankly. But I just began to believe that I could do something bigger with my life, and I could begin to create a lifestyle that I wanted, and I could find a way to get rich, and those were some absurd thoughts coming from where I came from, my family come from. But I began to grow this, like, burning desire inside. And I'll tell you what, like, I've never been afraid to work, and I've never been afraid to grind. And so that's what I was wanting to do. So this part of my life, I'm in my early 30s now. And so, I'm looking at, like, I've been out of college for like 10 years. And quite frankly, my wife and I, we didn't have anything. Asset-wise, like, we were to the point where we started a family. We're paying off our credit cards, and I did end up taking a small student loan when I was in college. My wife had a student loan, so we're doing, like, the Dave Ramsey thing and paying that off. And just get in a place where we could be debt free. The Dave Ramsey, I'm debt free. And I just look at it and I'm like, all right, so 10 years, this is where we're at, like 10 years, and we have nothing asset wise. And so I'm like, this does not look good for my future if I don't make some drastic changes. And I wasn't playing the victim or anything like that. I was just like, this is not going to work. So I want to have assets. I want to make money, but I want to have fun. I want to do other things. Like I want to wake up every day and excited what I do. And that's eventually a look at my life now. And I write books, I do seminars, I have the Breakthrough at the Beach event, and do, private coaching with my students and help them to do the same things. And I'm literally living the life that I really desired. And part of what I desire is to motivate and educate others. So, so going back to my story and how I got involved with real estate is a question you may be wondering about, and it's a question I get from time to time. So here's what happened. So I'm working this job and hating it, but I'm doing well. Like I'm finishing number 1 or number 2 every single year in sales. And at that time, that equated to like $50,000, $60,000 was my salary. And we're talking about the early 2000s, 2003, 2004 at this point, something like that. So it was okay income, I guess. We could pay the bills. And anyways, well, around this time, my wife had a family reunion. And my wife's an East Coast girl. She's a Philly girl. And she had a family reunion that we were going to go to. And it was out on the East Coast. We flew out to the East Coast. And she had told me about one of her family members. It was like some distant cousin or something like that. And she didn't even know him really well. But she told me that he was an entrepreneur. And she knew that he was mega wealthy and did some real estate stuff. And but that's about all she knew. So I'm like, all right, so I'm going to find this dude and kind of pick his brain, because I was like, just like hungry for information. And when the student is ready, the teacher appears, my friend. So anyways, I went to this reunion, and I'm just like, I'm going to meet this guy, like see what's up. So I met him. And he wasn't even there that long, which kind of sucked. And we didn't even talk that long. It was like a punch bowl kind of conversation. But I remember, like, we're in this living room and at this house that we're at, we're just kind of talking, trying to make small talk. And so I kind of just started coming out a little bit blunt with him, like, hey, man, I hear you're an entrepreneur, real estate, doing pretty well. And, I'm in the corporate world, not digging it too much. What advice would you have for someone who wants to start a business and not live this life that I have right now? And so he started telling me about real estate. He basically started telling me what I'm doing with you guys. He started telling me about his story and how he got started. He was probably in his mid-50s, I guess, at that time. But he said that he started investing in real estate. Buying some rental properties, and eventually bought some apartment complexes, and now he's doing like massive developments and stuff like that. And so I'm like, dude, that sounds like incredible, and it's really hard for me to even see myself as a real estate investor. What should I do? And he was just like, this is like so just personal development, Tony Robbins kind of stuff. He's like, you have to take action. Like, you have to take your destiny in your own hands. Like, you can do anything that you set your mind to. It was just kind of like small talk like that. And it's something now that I've heard like a million times, but I never really had anybody speak to me like that way, where not that they were, sure, I'd heard people speak that way and like, oh, you can do it. But it wasn't people who were also experiencing results, right? So he was saying these things to me, but they had a weight with them, with the words that he spoke. And so that kind of like started it for me on real estate. And like a million light bulbs began to go off on just real estate. Like, there's a million ways to make money in real estate, right? So I'm like, what do I do now? So I was like, what am I going to do now? So I began to read books. They're in I began to read books about real estate, and that's kind of where it started. Really, just one or two books, and I began to take action. There was immediately a lot of things I loved about real estate. I think one of the biggest things for me was the real estate offered the ability to create something from nothing, right? It's basically, I had no money at that time, and real estate provides this creative option, to do deals with no money down. And I know that they don't all go that way with doing no money down deals, although most of ours do these days. But that opportunity existed. It was there. And I was like, this is for me because of its ability to just get out there and I could start hustling and putting deals together and, have the opportunity or the ability to do zero down deals, even if that possibility existed. My mindset was just like, I'm going to find a way to make that happen. And there was the ability to create, passive investments. There were deals that that month after month were going to put cash in my pocket, and my tenants could pay principal down. There's all these things, the ability of leveraging money, leveraging time, leveraging knowledge, all these things that we could leverage in this business that began to just really excite me. This, creating something from nothing. And of course, like, probably number one reason everyone's attracted to real estate is because you can get wealthy, right? And I was like, I could get rich. I could get wealthy. I could live the American dream. I could leave my job and invest and do things with houses. Like, I loved houses, right? Like, everybody loves houses. So just so many aspects of the business resonated with me, and so that is where it all started at the end of 2006. And I literally went to a real estate networking club January of 2007, and bought my first house before the end of that same month in January 2007. I bought my first deal I used a credit card, believe it or not. One of the credit cards we had just finished paying off. I used a credit card to use as my down payment, and I bought a total of 10 houses 2007. I bought 10 more in 2008, and soon thereafter began putting partnerships and raising private money and all those types of things. I had about 25 rental properties at the beginning of 2009, and that's when I quit my job. I have been blowing and going since. I've been blowing and going since 2007 when I bought that first deal, and still buy rental properties today. We flip more than we rent, but that's all depends on the market. Depends on the market. We're going to take whatever opportunity that each market gives us. Today, what do we do? We have a construction company that I started in 2009 that it specializes in investment property construction. We do new construction development, meaning we're building new homes and selling those. And of course, I do coaching and teaching, mentoring, live events and things like that. Breakthrough at the beach. But here's the deal, like, I just feel called to motivate and educate others, man, like inspire and equip others to create results in business, but also really equip them with things that they need to go out and create success in life as well, because I don't want you to become what I became. So, and what did I become? I became what I will call myself as a one-dimensional douchebag, all right, quite frankly. And sorry if that's offensive to some, but that's what I was. I got on this path where I just got really focused on making money, and really bottomed out in terms of my marriage, my relationship with God. I was just like drinking like way more than I should have, and that was getting to a really dark place. And long story short, I didn't want that to be who I was. And really, it was who I was seeing a lot of the people that I was involved with in business, and even coaching. So I was doing real estate coaching at the time. I'm like, this is a pretty common thing where people are like focused on making money, money's going to solve everything. They find out it's not. And unfortunately, at that point in time, when they find out, like, it's not all, sunshine and rainbows when you're just focused on making money, because you are really neglecting these other areas of your life. Like, it's really dark and it's really ugly and it's really messy. And look, like, if you only get one thing from me, listen to this podcast, and you never listen again, that's cool. But just consider, there is so much more to life than just making money. There's so much more to life than just making money. So when I was down, like, the path I went on was putting it all back together, right? And I knew that I was going to continue to do business and make money, but I was like, how can I make money, generate the income and the net worth that I want, and make a lot of money, but also incorporate those four pillars of the F4 that I mentioned on the first show, right? Faith, family, fitness, and finances. How could I intertwine and incorporate all these things to do? Because the financial pillar of my life was going really well. But like I said, like, those are the four legs of a table, the four pillars. And I had, like, this really strong financial leg. It was well built. But at the same time, like, I was so disconnected in the other areas of my life. And I don't care how strongly you build one leg of your table. I've seen dudes who are in great shape, and that's about it. There's not much depth there when you start talking to them about spiritual things, and they're broke and their relationships suck, and guys who are really well-to-do financially, they may think like that's their security, but if you're broken spiritually, like, you're just hollow inside. I don't care. And if your marriage is on the rocks, or you get divorced and your children don't want a thing to do with you get older, I don't care. And this is often how many times that men will lose it all. We talk about, or I will talk about in my podcast, about a have it all kind of lifestyle, right? Having it all, not just the money, but all areas. Being connected in your faith, family, your fitness, and your finances. Having it all. Well, the path of being the one-dimensional dude, where you just make a lot of money, that is oftentimes the path of losing it all, because all that you have is money. And that's when guys fall into affairs, sedation with drugs and alcohol, and they end up losing it all because they didn't take the time to invest in those other areas of life. And that was really just what I came to the realization of. And really what I want this podcast to be about is, my path on putting it back together, but helping you out there. You may be struggling in one or more areas of your life and business, but I'm here to encourage and to impress upon you that when you begin committed to creating results and taking the actions that are correlated with creating the results that you desire, that you can have this have it all life. This have it all life. Doesn't mean you're going to be a millionaire tomorrow. Doesn't mean that you'll ever be a millionaire. It just means that you can daily make a commitment and invest and strengthen and improve all areas of your faith, family, fitness, and your financial situation. And when you begin to do that, when you do what I essentially did, and I chose, like, I was, like, my wife was leaving me, right? And she was on the brink, at least. And my mother-in-law, other people were telling her, leave Brant. You need to get out. And it was the bottom. It was a dark place. But when I was there, I chose to fight. And I'll tell you, and this is part of the entrepreneur type of mindset, is when your back's against the wall, when your back is against the wall, you need to be wired and create the mindset that you're coming out swinging. You're not going to stay there long. So I chose to fight. I chose to fight for my marriage. I chose to fight for my relationship with God, find a new connection and reestablish what my purpose really was and what my calling on this earth really is. I began to realize that I was made for a lot other things than just making money. And I want to help serve. I want to help lead. I want to help follow from others. But I want, what this podcast is about, I want to share my message with the world in hopes of inspiring others and equipping others. And even if it's just one, maybe it's just you, to consider you can be more. You can do more no matter where you're at with your life and with your business, that you have choices. You and only you, my friend, can change your reality. You and only you, my friend, can change your destiny. If you would just take time to consider those thoughts, that those same things and possibilities that I told you about, that I began to consider, that they exist for you as well. If you will begin to, if you will first make that commitment and then begin to take action. So it's all about taking actions in order to create results. And for me, coming from that place of darkness, I simply made a choice. I made a choice to fight. I made a choice to be committed to living a life that was not one-sided, not being that one-dimensional dude that I talked about, just making money, but rather to live by this code that I call the F4. Go out and create results. Go out and create results. That's it. So that is my story, my friends. That is what this podcast is about. And I would love for you to continue to listen. Take a few minutes out of your day. Some of the shows will be shorter than this. Some will be longer. I don't really know. This is a new venture for me. But one thing I know is that I love and appreciate each and every one of you. And I appreciate you listening to the show. And until next time, I look forward to helping you create results in your life and your business.
You've been listening to The Brant Phillips Show. To listen to past shows, get updates on future shows, and find other resources or information about coaching, visit BrantPhillips.com.